Welcome to English with Zenko Master. Get ready to learn something new today.
The envelope was already on my car seat when I opened the door. I noticed it right away. It was plain and cream-colored, with no name, no stamp, and no return address. I looked around quickly, but the street was quiet. Only a few people were walking in the distance, and none of them were looking at me. I sat down in the driver's seat and held the envelope in my hands. My heart began to beat faster. It wasn't heavy, and it didn't feel important, but something about it made my chest feel tight. At home, I placed the envelope on the kitchen table and stared at it while I made tea. I was alone. My husband, Mark, had taken the kids to his mother's house for the weekend. The silence in the house felt heavier than usual. When the water boiled, I poured it, but I didn't drink. I sat down and opened the envelope slowly, almost afraid of what was inside. There were only two things: an old photo and a small handwritten note. The photo was black and white. A woman was standing in front of a house holding a baby in her arms. She was young, maybe in her early 20s. Her hair was long and dark, and there were deep shadows under her eyes. Still, she smiled at the camera. I didn't recognize the house, but there was something about the woman's face that made me stop breathing for a second. She looked like me. Or more exactly, she looked like someone I had seen before. Then I looked at the baby. She was small, maybe 6 months old, with wide, curious eyes. A chill ran through me. I felt something strange in my stomach, like fear mixed with confusion. I turned to the note. It said, "You were taken. Start with Windermere." I read it again. And again. The handwriting was small, neat, almost careful. There was no signature, no explanation. I held the note tightly, trying to understand what it meant. Taken? Windermere? I had never heard of that place. But somehow, deep inside, I felt something was beginning to open. Something that had been locked away for a long time. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed with the photo beside me and the note in my hand. I kept looking at the woman's face, then at my own reflection in the mirror. There were similarities I couldn't ignore: our eyes, our chin, the shape of our nose. I remembered my parents once telling me I was adopted when I was a baby. They never spoke about it again, and I never asked. It was always something quiet, something we didn't talk about. They said my birth mother was very young, and she gave me up because she couldn't take care of me. That's what I had always believed. But now I wasn't sure. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about Windermere. I searched online and found it. It was a small town about 3 hours away. It wasn't well known, and there wasn't much information about it. I called in sick at work and packed a bag. I didn't tell Mark. I didn't even leave a note. I just took the photo and the letter and got in the car. The road to Windermere was quiet and empty for long stretches. Trees lined both sides, and the sky was cloudy. I kept thinking about the woman in the photo. If she was my birth mother, then why had I never seen her before? And who had sent the envelope? I arrived in the town around noon. It was small and old, with one main road that ran through it. There was a gas station, a small library, a post office, and a diner. I parked near the library and walked through the town, holding the photo in my coat pocket. I felt nervous. I didn't know what I was looking for, or even what I would do if I found something. Inside the library, it was warm and quiet. A woman with gray hair sat behind the front desk, reading. She looked up when I entered and smiled kindly. "Can I help you?" she asked. I hesitated, then pulled the photo from my pocket and held it out to her. "I'm looking for this woman," I said. "Do you know her?" She took the photo and stared at it for a few seconds. Her eyes widened slightly. "Yes," she said slowly. "That's Margaret Fields. She used to live here. Worked at the diner down the road." My throat felt dry. "Do you know what happened to her?" The librarian nodded. "She passed away, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Cancer, I believe. She was a quiet woman. Didn't have any family here. Just kept to herself." I asked her if she remembered the baby in the photo. She looked again. "Margaret had a daughter, but the child disappeared. Everyone said the father took her. Margaret said she was taken. She never spoke much about it. It broke her, I think. I felt cold all over. My legs felt weak. I thanked the woman and walked out of the library without knowing where I was going. My feet led me to the diner. It was old but still open. I went in and ordered coffee, sitting at a corner table where I could watch people. No one looked familiar. I kept hearing the word in my head, taken. Had my whole life been built on a lie? Later, I walked to the address the librarian had written down. Margaret's old house. It was small and quiet at the edge of town. The paint was peeling. The windows were dusty, but I recognized it immediately. It was the same house from the photo, the same porch, the same steps. I stood there for a long time, just looking at it. I imagined the woman in the photo standing there, holding a baby, holding me. I sat down on the front steps. I don't know why. I felt close to something important, something painful. The air was heavy. I felt tears in my eyes, but I didn't wipe them away. I let them fall. I stayed in Windermere for 2 days. I asked quiet questions. I looked through old newspapers at the library. One article mentioned a missing baby in 1997, a child taken from her mother's home. The police had never found the child. No arrest was made. The father was questioned but not charged. My hand shook when I read it. The date matched my birth year. I returned home on Sunday evening. Mark was surprised to see me. I told him I needed a break, but I didn't give details. I didn't know how. I didn't know where to start. I went into the bedroom and locked the door. I looked at the photo again. I stared into the eyes of the woman holding the baby who might be me. And I whispered, "Who took me?" Because now I wasn't sure who I was or who I could trust. Before I share the rest of my story, could you please tell me where you're from? It gives me strength to know there's someone out there who listens to me, who understands me. It means a lot to me. I couldn't stop thinking about Margaret. Even after coming back home, my mind stayed in Windmere. Every quiet moment became a door that opened to more questions. Who was she really? What happened the night I was taken? And the biggest question, why didn't anyone tell me the truth? I tried to go back to normal life, but I wasn't the same. Mark noticed that something was wrong. He asked if I was tired or stressed from work. I told him yes, but that wasn't it. Something deeper had changed in me. I no longer trusted the life I had built. Even my reflection in the mirror felt unfamiliar. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I sat alone in the kitchen with the photo and the note. I turned the paper over and noticed a tiny line of numbers printed in the bottom corner. A date. March 5th, 1997. I knew my birthday was listed as March 8th. But what if the date on the photo was the day I disappeared? The day someone took me? I opened my old memory box, the one I hadn't touched in years. Inside were a few drawings, school photos, and a small envelope with my adoption papers. I had looked at them once when I was a teenager, but never since. My parents had always told me the adoption was legal, done through an agency. But now, I wasn't sure I believed that anymore. The papers were short. There was no name for the birth mother. Just unknown female, age 22. No hospital listed. No birth certificate copy. Just a signature from a lawyer I had never heard of, and a stamp from a private agency that no longer existed. It felt too simple, too empty. I knew what I had to do next. I needed to ask my parents. It had been months since I visited them. They lived 2 hours away in a quiet suburb. I called my mom that night and said I wanted to come by. She sounded happy to hear from me, but her voice became nervous when I said I wanted to talk. I drove down the next morning while the kids were in school. The weather was clear, but my heart felt heavy. The photo and note were in my bag. I didn't plan to show them right away. First, I needed to hear what they would say. My mother greeted me at the door with a hug. She looked older than I remembered, and her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. My father was in the living room reading, but he stood when he saw me. We sat down in the kitchen, where I had eaten so many meals as a child, and I asked if we could talk in private. They looked at each other. My mother's face grew pale. My father folded his hands. I found something, I said. Something about my past. There was silence. Then my mother looked down at her lap and whispered, I always knew this day would come. I asked them who Margaret Fields was. My father's expression changed. He stood up and walked to the window as if he needed distance from the truth. She was your mother, my mother said quietly. Your birth mother. I waited. We didn't go through an agency, she added. There was no paperwork in the beginning. You were left with us, given to us by someone we trusted. My hands felt cold. What do you mean, given? My father turned. "A friend of mine brought you to us. He said the mother couldn't keep you. He said it was better this way. We believed him. And we loved you like our own from the first day." I couldn't breathe for a moment. "You didn't adopt me legally?" "We did. Later," my mother said. "But not right away. It wasn't official until you were nearly 2. We thought it didn't matter. You were already part of our family." I showed them the photo. My mother gasped. "She gave this to him," she said. "He brought it with you. But we were told to throw it away. He said it would only confuse you." My voice shook. "Who was this friend?" My father paused. "His name was Thomas. Thomas Heller. We met him through the church. He helped young women in trouble." I had never heard the name before, but I wrote it down. I left soon after. I told them I needed time to think. They didn't argue. At home, I searched the name online. Thomas Heller. Nothing came up at first. But then, I found a newspaper article from 15 years ago. A man with that name had been questioned in connection with an illegal adoption case. He was never charged, but the article said he had worked with several families in small towns across the state. One name stood out: Windermere. The article mentioned that he disappeared soon after the investigation. Some people believed he moved out of the country. Others thought he changed his name. I couldn't stop shaking. That night I barely slept. I had a dream that I was standing outside the house in Windermere, but I was a child. I was crying, and no one came to the door. I woke up with tears on my pillow. Over the next few days, I tried to focus on my life, my kids, my work, my home, but something had changed in me. I had to keep digging. I couldn't go back to living in silence. I contacted a private investigator. Her name was Amanda. She had a calm voice and asked smart questions. I gave her the photo, the note, and the name of Thomas Heller. She said she would look into it. 2 weeks later, she called me. "I found someone who might know more," she said. "An old nurse who worked in Windermere at the time you were born. Her name is Eleanor King. She's retired now, but she still lives in the area." I asked for the address. It was a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood. I knocked on the door, heart racing. A woman in her 70s opened it. She looked at me for a moment, then stepped aside and let me in. "I know who you are," she said. "You look just like your mother." I sat down slowly. "I worked at the clinic in Windermere," she said. "Your mother came in late one night. She was scared and alone. She gave birth to you there. We helped her as best we could. But 2 days later, both of you were gone." My voice was barely a whisper. "Gone?" She nodded. "A man came to visit. She didn't want to see him. She was afraid. But he insisted. He said he could help her. The next day, the bed was empty. The police were called, but no one ever found her or the baby. I sat there in silence. Everything inside me was shaking. "She loved you," Eleanor said. She cried when you were born. She held you for hours. I know she never wanted to give you up. I thanked her and left. My legs felt weak. At home, I locked myself in the bathroom and cried. I cried for the woman who held me. I cried for the years we lost. I cried because the truth hurt more than the lie. But the worst part was still ahead, because the private investigator called again. And this time she said, "I found something else. You're going to want to sit down." I sat in my bedroom with the phone pressed to my ear. Amanda's voice was calm, but I could tell she was holding something back. She asked again if I was sitting down. I told her I was. My heart beat faster, and I felt cold even though the room was warm. "There's a record," she said. A file that was hidden inside an old hospital storage system in Windermere. It was hard to find, but it confirms something important. Margaret Fields filed a report the day after you were born. She reported a kidnapping. I didn't speak. I couldn't. She told the nurse that a man had come to see the baby. She didn't trust him. She asked for protection. But by the time anyone could respond, both she and the baby were gone. We now believe the man was Thomas Heller. I asked her if Margaret ever got the baby back. Amanda paused for a long time. "No," she said. The case was closed a year later. The baby was never found. But there's more. I also found something in a private archive. A letter. It's written by Margaret, but never sent. It was saved in her old journal, which was given to a local church after her death. The journal was passed to a charity. They digitized it. I sat up straighter. Amanda continued. The letter was written to her daughter. To you. I covered my mouth with my hand. I asked if she could send it. She said yes, and a few minutes later, I received the file. I opened it slowly, as if it would break. It was written in simple words, like a mother trying to speak to a child. "My dearest girl," it began. "I don't know where you are or who has you now. I only know that you were taken from me, and I have spent every day hoping for your return. I held you for 2 days. I counted your fingers and kissed your cheeks. I whispered your name while you slept. You were so quiet, so perfect. I loved you then, and I love you still." Tears filled my eyes as I read each line. They told me I was too young, too poor, too broken to be a mother. But I never believed them. I wanted you. I needed you. And when they took you, they took my heart with you. If you ever find this, I hope you know none of this was your fault. You were never a mistake. You were the best part of me. I closed my eyes. My hands were shaking. I felt her voice inside me, like something warm and heavy that had been missing all my life. I visited her grave the next weekend. Amanda gave me the location. It was a quiet spot near the edge of Windermere, under a large tree. The grass was clean, and the stone was simple. It read, Margaret Fields, 1975 to 2019. She waited. She hoped. I brought flowers. I knelt down and placed the photo beside the stone. For a long time, I didn't speak. I just sat there, letting the wind move through the trees. Then I began to talk. I told her about my life, about my husband, my children, the house we lived in. I told her I had been happy, but something had always felt missing. I told her that I now understood, that I had found her, that I would not forget her again. And I promised her something. I promised I would tell the truth. I would tell my children where they came from. I would keep her story alive. After that, something changed in me. I didn't feel lost anymore. I felt strong. But there was still one more thing I had to do. I returned to my parents' house, my adoptive parents. I brought the photo, the note, the letter, and the report. I showed them everything. My mother cried. My father said nothing for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and tired. "We thought we were doing the right thing," he said. "We were told she didn't want you. We were told it was better this way." I looked at them both. "I believe you loved me," I said, "but I don't believe the lie anymore." They didn't argue. I told them I needed space. I didn't want to punish them, but I had to protect the part of me that now knew the truth. Weeks passed. Life slowly returned to normal, but it wasn't the same. I talked to my husband. I told him everything. He listened carefully, then held me close and said, "Whatever you need, I'm here." That night, I opened a new photo album. On the first page, I placed the old photo of Margaret and the baby. On the second page, I added the letter. On the third, I added a photo of myself as a baby, held by the parents who raised me. Then I added pictures of my own children, laughing in the garden, holding hands at the beach. This is my story now, I thought. Not simple, not clean, but real. One afternoon, my daughter came into my room while I was looking at the album. She pointed at the photo of Margaret. "Who's that?" she asked. I smiled. "That's your grandmother, my birth mother." "Is she nice?" she asked. "She was strong," I said, "and brave. She loved me very much." My daughter nodded and sat beside me. We looked through the album together, page by page. I didn't hide anything from her. I told her about Margaret, Windermere, and the way I was taken. She didn't understand all of it, but she listened carefully. She held my hand. Sometimes healing begins like that, with small hands and quiet questions. Months later, I went back to Windermere one last time. The town felt different now. Less like a mystery and more like a place I had known long ago. I walked past the diner, the library, and finally the house. It was still empty, but not forgotten. I stood in front of the porch and took a photo of it. This time, I was the one holding the camera. I walked away slowly, the way someone walks when they've finally put down a heavy bag they've carried for too long. I had found the truth, and in doing so, I had found myself. I hope you have enjoyed the story. Like and comment if you want to hear more soon.